how we can store data or value in our computer's memory. If you don't have any idea on it, then in this lecture I will teach you how to do it. Hello and welcome back everyone. I am Aman from ProCoder. And in this lecture we will learn how we can store data or value in our computer memory. So here is our outline. We will talk about what variables are and why we need variables in almost every programming language. After that we will learn how to declare variables in C program, how to initialize variables in C program, and finally see some programming example that clear your concept about variables. Let's start. Do you know how our mother stores salt in our home? They store salt in the box or in the plastic. Similarly, in computer memory, if you need to store data or value, then we need a box that is capable of holding data. So, we can reserve some space, and this task is done using a variable. So, a variable is nothing but a box or a container that is capable of holding data. And each variable has a specific type. And this is called as a variable because the value inside it can change. Now, let's have a look at the computer memory. You can imagine that this table is the memory of our computer. So, it is divided into boxes. As you can see, this box we have some data, which is number 5. Here we have a string that is hello, and here we have a number. So, there are 3 boxes or variables. They are containers in our computer memory. You don't need to worry about at which location of memory your value is getting stored. Your task is just providing the name, and internally it will point to some memory location. Now, let me tell you one thing. Each variable has a unique address in our computer memory. So suppose 1001 is the address of this variable, 1010 is address of this variable, and 1101 is the address of this one. Actually, the address of each variable is written in a hexadecimal form, but for simplicity we write in a decimal form. And address specifies where the variable is located in the computer memory. Note, in reality, variables are just a name that point to some memory location. Note down this thing. But there is one more thing that we need to be sure about. You must have to declare variable before using in your program. Now, declaring a variable means what? Declaration simply means announcing the property of variable to the compiler. Here, properties are that what will be the size of that variable and what will be the name of that variable. Don't worry, it is not very difficult job to do. You will see in a moment how easy it is to declare a variable. There is one more term called definition of a variable, which means allocating memory to a variable. Most of the time, declaration and definition will be done at the same time, but this is not always the case. It depends on the modifiers that you had mentioned with the variables. We will talk about modifiers later, and then we will also explain how declaration and definition is different for different modifiers. Let me give you an example how to declare a variable. Here, the name of a variable is var and it has integer data type. Data type simply means how much space a variable is going to occupy in our computer memory. Therefore, by writing int var, we are declaring a variable. Along with that, we are requesting the compiler to allocate memory for this variable. Please note down one thing. After int var, we put a semicolon over here. This is very important because this is how your compiler separates one statement from other. So don't forget to add a semicolon at the end of the variable, or you can say semicolon in C just like full stop in English. If you want to break a line, then in English we put full stop in the last of the line. On the other hand, in C program, if you want to break the line, then we put a semicolon and compiler understand that this is the line break. So don't forget to add a semicolon at the end of the variable. Now, syntax of declaring a variable look like this: data type, variable name, and a semicolon. You don't have to worry about data type. We will talk about it later. Now, memory space depends upon the type or data type you use. Here, because in our example we are using integer data type. Therefore, it may take either 2 bytes of memory or maybe 4 bytes of memory. It purely depends on the system you are working on. Again, you don't need to worry about how much space is allocated to your variable. You only have to focus on declaration and definition of a variable. If you assign some value to a variable at the time of declaration itself, then this thing is called as initialization. And this is how you will do initialization. Note, initialization of variable doesn't mean you cannot change the value of that variable afterwards in your code. If you want the value to be changed somewhere, then you can do that. This clearly captures the meaning of a variable. Now, let's see some programming example how to use variables in our program. In the first line, we write #include stdio.h. This is our header file because we need to print some output. After that, we declare the main function. Inside the main function, we declare a variable that name is var. Now, suppose I initialize it first to 5. Now, let's print the value of var using printf function. Inside the printf function, we write %d and the name of a variable. I will explain more about what this %d means. For now, I can only tell you that this will print the content of whatever is there inside this variable var. You have to put a semicolon at the end, return 0. Now let's save and run the code. You can see the output here, which is 5. Now let's take another example where we change the value of variable. Inside the main function, I am first declaring a variable whose name is var. Suppose I initialize first to 5 and afterwards I change this value to 10. You can observe that I had not written int var again in this statement when I am assigning value to it. Because the memory is allocated to a variable once and defining it once again means you want to allocate memory again for the same name, and this is not valid. Note, each variable must be defined only once in a block, but it can be used multiple times with different assignment operators. Here we print the value of var using printf function. Save and run the code. You can see the output here, which is now 10. Previously I had initialized the value, which is 5, and then I changed the value to 10. And after that we print the value of var, and as expected my output is 10 printed without any error. You can assign variable to variable instead of if you need to assign the same value to all variables. Like this. Int var1 is equal to 5. Suppose my new variable is var2. I declare and I initialize, or you can say I assign the value to it with the value of var1. Here you can see that I am assigning the value 5 actually, because the value of var1 is 5. And assigning the variable to variable means assigning the value of that variable to another variable. Now let's print variable var2 using printf function. Let's compile and run the code. As you can see, the output is printed as the value of var1. First we initialize var1 and its value 5. After some words, we declare a new variable named var2. After that we assign var1 to var2 and print the value of var2. Did you know, if you want to declare more than one similar data type variable, then instead of declaring separately, we can declare in a single line. This obviously decreases the length of the program. Like this. Int var1 is equal to 5, comma, var2 is equal to 10, comma, var3 is equal to 15. Here, if you see carefully, we separate all variables with a comma operator, and also declare more than one variable in a single line. This obviously decreases the length of the program, because if you write this separately then we need 3 lines, but here we done in a single line. Now let's print all the variables using printf function. As you can see, my output is printed, which is 5, 10 and 15. I hope this lecture is helpful for you. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye.